right, sounds good. It's 7 o'clock, so I'll call the meeting to order. Pat, meeting notice verification? Okay. Brennan, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madison, would you like to give us our mission statement?
Would love to. Okay. Serve with passion to ignite creativity, innovation, and excellence.
Thank you. Roll call, we've got board members except Mr. Gavigan is excused. And Ryan, your team? Looks like they're all here.
Yep, our team is here.
Okay. I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we have an agenda. First up is reports, Business Operations Committee. Tom, I know you guys met tonight. Do you want to tell us what was discussed?
So basically, we went over some of the budgeting of 22-23, which we're going to be discussing more further in this meeting. So I'm not going to reiterate anything. We're just looking at what might be coming up. So we'll see that later on in the meeting.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Board members, any questions for Tom? All right, move on to the CISA 4 Board of Control report. We met last Wednesday, September 7th at Watson's Restaurant in Galesville. We approved an appointment to an empty board member seat that was held by Vernon County. Hillsborough School Board member Lindsay O'Hare will take that seat. And we approved personnel contracts for an occupational therapy and school counselor. The parking lot at CISA 4 building was resealed recently. And there was also some discussion on the additional money that Governor Evers is releasing to schools for as part of the ARPA money. And then there's also going to be some money coming to school. We don't know how much for West Salem, but for a non-competitive nursing grant that the Wisconsin Department of Health Services has allocated. And our next meeting will be Wednesday, October 5th, 6:30 p.m., location to be determined. Questions on that report? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item C, District Strategic Initiatives Update by Superintendent Cabinet Team. Questions or comments on those reports? For that team or Ryan?
Maybe just start with an overall question, because there's some information in the report about first days of school, how we doing attendance-wise, new student-wise, like parking-wise, things like that.
I'll turn it over to Ben and Mike, and they can answer that before I get to my start of the school year report.
I would say at the middle school, attendance, we're back to quote-unquote normal. As far as you look at our rates of attendance and things like that, there aren't really any big concerns school-wide. New students seem to be enjoying our building and the way we do things. We've had good feedback, a couple positive emails from parents, things like that. So far off to a good start at the middle school.
At the high school, I guess I would echo that. We've had a real good start. It's great, as you saw in my comments, it was nice to, I guess, start normal again. We had a lot of kids here. We had probably, I don't know the exact number, between 30 and 40 new students that we weren't expecting when we left in May. So I don't have the exact number, but I know the last time I checked, we were up to 618. So that's the biggest by a lot that we've ever been. And I would guess if you talk to the two reps, they will echo that it's crowded and there's lots of people running around. But it's gone very, very well. As far as the parking goes, you can, if you remember from when we approved the handbook this past summer, one of the changes that we have talked about making is we don't have enough room for everyone to park. So after we've done a little bit of investigating, we came up with a plan. There's about 320 spots in the lot. If you get rid of the 150 rough numbered freshmen we have, that means by the end of the year, there'll be 470 kids eligible to get a driver's license with 320 spots. We'd like to have a spot for substitute teachers and visitors to also have a place to park. So we started a new system this year where we issued out new parking badges, tags, whatever you want to call it, that we would hang from the rearview mirror of windows, and each grade level has a different color. We've been keeping track, and so far we've issued out about 265 of those. We've communicated, but sometimes we all know that that's not enough. So we put information in the district newsletter, in our high school newsletter. It's been on the announcements. I announced it the first day of school with all the kids in their individual class meetings. We're gonna probably begin taking a look at enforcing that policy and procedure here towards the end of the week with a parking citation warning if you haven't not come in, because we know we have lots of people in the lot right now that have not done so. We've worked with Officer Nate Ganrud to come up with our own West Salem High School little parking ticket system. And then we are currently allowing the sophomores to park in the lot until we know we've exceeded the number of 300. And at that point in time, we're gonna ask the sophomores to park off campus, whether that's on the street, in one of the other, the Panther Den lot, or down at the Lion Shelter lot. We're gonna ask those kids just based on age level to allow the juniors and seniors, and then when the seniors graduate, we'll collect, I don't know, what color did you guys get for parking tags? We'll collect the white ones and hand those out to the freshmen, and we'll just go on a rotation like that each and every year, so. But otherwise, it's gone fantastic. We've had great turnout at events and stuff, and the kids are just doing a fantastic job. It's been a great start.
And I know things are going well over at the elementary school. Morale is very good, and I know that there's a daily recess competition between Mr. Gunderson and Mr. Fruit for passing yardage and touchdowns. So I think both of them right now are doing better than a green and gold quarterback did yesterday. So, with that, just I want to talk briefly about the school year. And first off, I want to make sure that we give thanks to our National Honor Society students. I know this last weekend we had the Flags of Honor down in Village Park. And I know our National Honor Society students did I talked to Rita multiple times over the last couple of days, and she couldn't say enough about how respectful our students were and their help of getting those up, and then the takedown of that yesterday, and just how respectful they were of the flag, and if something hit the ground, and knowing that they needed to get picked up right away. And so kudos to our National Honor Society staff and our students for helping with that. I think that's a great community service project, I know, which is something we've talked about that we want to continue to do. So thanks to them with that. I know Eric brought up attendance, and I know Mike was talking about the increase in students. We have our third Friday count this Friday, and so when we come back at our next board meeting in September, we'll have a solidified number of what that's going to be, and that leads into some of the budgetary numbers that Sean will talk about here a little bit later as well. You heard Mike talk about the traffic around with the number of students and the parking. Just to let the board know that we did get a grant from WSDOT to go forward and do a traffic study. Now, before we can receive that grant money and go forward with the traffic study, we need to do, I know Sam and I think Officer Ganrud and one of our other partners that we're going forward with this need to go through and do some training with that. So they allotted the money, but they don't have the training complete yet. So as soon as we complete that training, then we can get the money and go forward to do that traffic study. But obviously, there's a lot of vehicles and traffic around campus. We want to make sure that we continue to make this a safe place for everybody. And one of the things that we will do when we have that training complete, we're looking at having a listening session mid-October. And when we have that listening session mid-October with our community and our families, we'll bring up, we'll pose a question, and I'll bring whoever we're going to do the traffic study in, so we can gauge some of that feedback from our community as well as about some concerns or some areas to look for with some of that traffic around campus. We are back in the swing of things. It's very nice. I know that Mike brought it up, but this is our first normal start since September of 2019, and it feels good. And I think you can tell that around campus, not only with the students, but with the staff as well. There's a different, it's just a different atmosphere around here, one with relief and excitement, and so that's nice to have. When we came back and we had staff in service, one of the things I'm really proud of all three of our buildings in doing, and I know Deanna helped with this, and I know Heidi is in this as well, but we started, we're continuing on with our target-based grading initiative, and one of the things that we have a common thread throughout the district is how we're going to talk about behavior and pause. I know that you've heard Ben talk about pause at the middle school, and Mike's talked about it at the high school, but they uncovered that here this year at the elementary school. So every building within our district is going to have a pause acronym to it, and the one common thread between all three buildings is act respectfully for that A, so that's kind of nice that we have that common thread that goes through. New this year, we started school before September 1st, and it's one thing that I'm going to look to have a public hearing again, with the board and in an open meeting session to see if we want to continue to go forward and do that again. If we're able to do that, I had a meeting with the DPI here this last week that was very favorable. But as we look at the 23-24 school year, if we're able to start before September 1st, that would be great. If not, then we're probably looking at a school start date of September 5th. And so when you think of those things and how we want to do things within our district and have some flexibility within our calendar, it kind of handcuffs us quite a bit with that. So those will be some things that are coming up. But I'm proud of the start with how our staff has handled the start of the school year and how our students have handled the start of the school year. And it's a great time to be a Panther again.
All right, thanks, Ryan. Board members, questions for Ryan? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to connection with the community. Board reports by high school student reps. I'll let you guys decide who's going to go first.
All right, so the football team moves to 3-1 with a weird victory on last Friday. The volleyball team is 2-1 in conference now. The boys soccer won their last game against Aquinas, and last Thursday the cross country team took first at the GET meet, and the boys took second. The tennis girls have also won their past two meets.
And then this past week, each grade level voted for class president, and the junior and senior class have now added the position of vice president. And then student council has taken on the responsibilities of homecoming, along with DECA taking over kickoff on the Sunday prior. And then many activities are also starting up, including DECA, FCA, Ecology Club, and many more.
What was the weird victory?
So after like 50 minutes of delays from lightning storms at halftime, Arcadia refused to come out and play us. They said they couldn't field enough guys to play. Yeah.
Any other questions for the student reps? All right, thanks. Moving on to correspondence, there's not any tonight in the packet. And public comment at board meetings, board policy 167.3. Pat, do we have anyone? Not tonight, all right. Move on to the consent agenda, which includes minutes of the regular board meeting of August 22nd, 2022. Invoices to be paid, donations, and co-curricular recommendations for volleyball, soccer, football, basketball, wrestling, gymnastics, middle school volleyball, middle school advisors, and a fitness center director. And I'll read donations. Thomas and Lorna Sheeny donated $250 to the wrestling program. Morgan Quackenbush donated $580 from her SCP to the middle school for cross-country. Kellen Wright donated $609.85 from his SCP to the high school football program. Della Dingledine donated back-to-school items to the elementary school. And the Lacrosse Community Foundation / Jim's Grocery Bag Schrader Fund donated $790 to the Nutrition Services Department.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Is there additional discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, consent agenda approved. Moving on to discuss, consider, and take action if appropriate regarding strategic initiatives. Item 8, budget, mill rate, and tax levy update.
As we start to prepare for the annual meeting that's at the end of October, one of the things that, one of the more important things that we do within the district office is get the budget prepared for that time. And so, and a big number that comes in with that is this third Friday count. But with that, I know Sean and I have been doing some work on the budget, looking at the revenue limit tax sheet where we can, work some things here to be favorable for everybody. So with that, I'll just turn it over to Sean and you can give an update, Sean.
Sure. Within your packet, you'll see the revenue limit worksheet that we discussed at the business operations meeting. Excuse my apologies for the revenue limit worksheet date on the top. The DPI must not have changed that. So there's a few numbers within this form. This is what our consistency as far as how we receive our funding. Mostly if you look at line 6 with the number of students, at this time we're picking what we had from the previous year, but we also know that numbers are up, as Mr. Malott has voiced here earlier. We still have to unpack that number, how that's going to look, whether it's open enrollment ends or folks that have moved here, so we'll get a better idea what our revenue limit worksheet will look like. The other key component on this piece is the property values. Property values have skyrocketed across the state to the tune of, for us, their estimation from the Baird group that works with us is between 12 and 14%. Now, what does that look like for us? I mean, across the board, it increases our rate, but it also will drop our mill rate, which is projected, and that will be projected across all school districts throughout the state. So we'll just have to keep in mind where we land our mill rate portion at the end of October for our annual meeting. So we'll have a couple of numbers and a couple of more discussions to talk about at the end of the September meeting and early October. But majority of these figures, such as the enrollment portion, will be locked in by the end of September, along with the property values. And our equalized aid number, as at this point in time, a lot of school districts are uploading their annual reports from the previous fiscal year, which locks in those numbers. And kind of, as everybody usually puts it, is you're competing with 420 other school districts on how much of that funding that everybody receives. And so our piece for the upcoming year and our estimate, if you go to the page 2 on that form, under 12A, we're going to be up about $800,000 to $900,000 in that portion. Now that distributes, the revenue limit portion will be the same. It's just who pays what. So the property taxes will decrease for the local property tax group, or the local property taxpayers, and so the state will cover the other portion of it. So we're getting to the 2/3 funding, what the state legislator and the governor has wanted for a long time now, so we're at that portion. So at the end of October, we'll talk a little bit more about, or the end of September, we'll talk a little bit more about that, how that plays into our number and what our mill rate's gonna look like. So we'll get a closer number on where we think we're going to land our budget fiscally, whether we'll have a little bit of a cushion or a shortfall. So, any other questions?
Sean, is there any talk about them actually changing how we allocate revenue from the state? And this is like heartburn for our district because they go back to 92, 93.
Yep. They've talked about the funding formula and how that works. This funding formula has been enacted since the early 70s. It's a fairness level of how the school district gets, and how that works is whether you live in Ashland or whether you live in Milwaukee or La Crosse, every student is equal, gets the same value of an education. So the funding formula, how that's driven, whether it's property taxes or state aided, you know, because there's some school districts that get more state aid than actual property taxes, and vice versa, just to keep everything on an equal playing field. But to tweak some numbers in between of it, they've talked about that, and they just haven't landed on anything in the future yet, so.
But it's still not equal, right? So for, like, our district gets $10,000 and some districts get
Correct.
$17,000.
Correct, it's just when everything got locked, and they've never talked about that portion about raising the lower level school districts, which that's us, we
Yes.
fall in that bottom percentage of it. They have not voiced any opinion on that piece of it, but
And there's nothing,
Keep doing that. That's about all we can do from our side. What other questions do we have for Sean or this information at this time?
No, this will continue to be a process for us over the next month and 2 weeks, and, you know, and we talked about it during business ops, and it's something that Sean and I have continued to talk about, and we know, what we've come forth to the public and what we said to the public when we passed the referendum back in April, and, we want to make sure that we fulfill those promises and those obligations that we said to, you know, that we reiterated to the public throughout this time. So, you know, now it's just working with the numbers as they come in and seeing how we can make sure that we're fulfilling those obligations that we stated to the public when they trusted us back in April.
Okay, if there's nothing additional on that agenda item, we can move on to our list of to-do items and information requests. Board members, anything to add on there, or Ryan, anything you want to call our attention to?
I know that at one point early this spring, there was a question about solar cover and the pool and things like that. So we have the cost of what a solar cover would be, and I did have a club here in the high school. One of the reps came to talk to me, and they wanted, knowing that we are close to turning on the solar at the middle school, pending an inspection by the state and XL Energy whenever that comes in, but they want to start to look at what that would be. And then one of the challenges that I said to them was, well, you know, we have a pool, what would it cost, and what would some of those things, by looking at the amount of energy that we generate from the middle school, what something would take to run the pool or things like that. So, but we do have a cost for the solar cover on the pool, and I have that quote sitting in my office, so I took that off the list.
Okay, board members? Nothing? Okay. I'll look for a motion to adjourn then.
Move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, thanks. I have a motion and a second. All in favor? All right, thanks. We're adjourned. Appreciate your time, everyone.